Alright, who have you got here in the chat room? Easy, easy, what's good? Iceman Click, long time, what's good, bro? What's happening? So, the topic tonight is going to be a pretty loose topic. I'm just going to be talking about the aftermath of Okolie Chamberlain, Gassiev versus Dorticos, and then we'll go on from there. Kenak TV, what's up? What's good? Yeah, what a topic indeed. Ryan Calm, what a topic indeed. Alright, let's try this pop out chat, make this big. Yeah. Zoe Patterson, how you doing? You good? Yes, salute to all the Patreon members, definitely salute. Big up. Did I see KSI versus Joe Weller? I didn't. Should I watch it? do I want to watch a couple of YouTubers having a fight? Maybe I do. Def Vibes says, what's up? Kenak TV says, you used to make gaming vids, why'd you stop? To be honest with you, it's just because I don't really game that much these days. That's what it is. I don't really have that much time to game. So that's what the issue is, because gaming is time consuming. You know, it is time consuming. So yeah, that's all it is really. Daniel Collins, what's up? Every Desire, what's good? KSI's fight was better than Okolie's swear down. I can believe it, to be honest. I can believe it. The Okolie Chamberlain fight was horrible. It was horrible. Okolie said in some post-fight interviews that he was emotionally involved. He says that's why his technique totally broke down and why he was just falling into clinches constantly. And that's pretty much what his trainer said as well, that it was his emotional, you know, his emotions basically. He couldn't control them in the ring, and that's why he was so sloppy and there was so many clinches. Ishmael Morris, big up, and thank you for tuning in. Grant Gurney says, worth the watch in a funny way. Fair play to them to get in the ring though. Yeah, you know, fair play to get in the ring. Iceman Click says Chamberlain has disappeared. Disappeared as in what? Disappeared as in milk carton disappeared, or just ain't doing interviews after the fight? Thomas Breda, big up. Because the things that Lawrence Okolie was saying before the fight were actually true in terms of the psychology of Isaac Chamberlain. He was right about that. And I heard Spencer Fearon talking on EJ Boxing Live saying something similar, saying that Chamberlain was surrounding himself with gas men, basically, with yes men, with people who are just hyping him up. Like Spencer said he went into Nando's like a couple of days before the fight and he saw Isaac Chamberlain there with like 30 people gassing him up, you know, whereas Lawrence was just with his team. He didn't have a bag of people around him trying to raise up his confidence. So yeah, he was right about that. Okolie, that is. John McCallum says, Hatman, who you got for Junior versus Groves? I'm back and forth. I had been going for Junior all along until I saw Groves versus who was the last guy that Groves fought? My memory's getting worse with age. What's that guy that Groves just fought? The Southpaw guy. He looked good in that to me. You know, he looked sharp. His offense looked sharp. His defense has always been a bit suspect, George Groves, but his offense, Cox, thank you, Jamie Cox. His offense looks sharper than I've seen it for years, George Groves. So he kind of made me change my perspective. Marek says, Hatman, you have to work doors in the roughest neighborhood and you can only take 3 guys and you are offered Froch, Eubank Jr., Hay, Amir Khan, Golovkin, Chameleon, Jurjai. Oh gosh, what a choice. What a choice. Who am I taking? Golovkin, no question, because he hits like a train and he's got an iron jaw. So Golovkin has to be one of the guys I'm taking with me. And the other one would be out of, I reckon, Hay, you know, because Hay laid it down when he took on Derek Chisora. So I'm going to say David Hay. I'm going to say Hay and Golovkin. That's who I'm taking into battle with me. Yeah. Big Mo, what's good? What's good, Big Mo? Kenak TV says, I feel like Eubank Jr. will outwork Groves. He has the engine to do it, but he has to get close enough. He has to get past the long range sniping of George Groves. So let's see if he can do it. What about you, Marek? Who would you take in terms of 3 guys? I only said 2. Yeah, I'm gonna say Hay, Golovkin, and out of Eubank Jr. and Frotch, I'm gonna take Eubank Jr. because he's younger. Yes, Anthony Wade, what's good? Yeah, same as SJS. Triple G, Eubank, and Hay. That's who I'm taking to work the doors with me in the roughest neighborhood. Zoe Patterson says Hay would break all his bones if you took him. That's a fair comment. Yeah. Bar for bar, Baker says Hatman the Okolie Chamberlain fight was average rubbish main event. Rest of the fights were good. Yeah. At the end of the day, Okolie and Chamberlain are novices. They're novice professionals. How many fights has Okolie had? Like 7 fights? 8 fights? So, and this is something somebody said to me in one of the comments on my post-fight video for Okolie Chamberlain. They said I went easy on Okolie, whereas I went hard on what's his name now? I went hard on Breedis for fighting a similar kind of fight. And I said, yeah, because Breedis is a, you know, experienced professional. He's not somebody that's like Okolie who's a novice, who's just in his first big fight. You know, Breedis shouldn't be fighting the way he did against Perez with all that kind of clinching, with so much experience and, you know, fighting at the top level, a world champion. Okolie can understand it because it's his first rodeo really, and he wasn't ready. Neither him nor Chamberlain psychologically were really ready for that kind of occasion, and it really showed in the fight. It was a couple of novices in there, and that's what it looked like. So you do have to go a little bit easier on them when they're so inexperienced, and look more to Eddie Hearn and say, Eddie Hearn, you're putting on a guy who's what, 7-0? Is that what Okolie was, 8-0? As a headline event at the O2? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, he's not really ready for that. And is someone who's 7-0 or 8-0 really capable of delivering a O2 headline level fight? These are the questions that have to be asked. Jam Barty, big up. JW, big up. Going in for the kill says, who would you put in the World Boxer Super Series for heavyweights? That's a good question. A Wakari says, seeing Junior scrapping in the car park, he's got to be in there. Yeah. Dominator says, how's Hay gonna win? KO or points? Is Hay even gonna win? Is he even gonna turn up? That's the question. Can Hay's body actually hold up to the rigors of a 12-round fight if it goes that long? Can he even get through training camp? Is David Hay even in full training camp right now? Yemi Warner says, who had the best entry music in your opinion? I always like Chris Eubank Sr.'s entrance music, simply the best. It really suited him. And it really got the crowd buzzing before he got into the ring. But I actually quite like George Groves' entrance music as well, which is, I think, The Prodigy, called Spitfire, the track. I like the sound of that track, you know, for George Groves' entrance. It's intense. So yeah. Can Bellew beat Usyk or Gassiev? I don't think so, but look how many times we've all underestimated Tony Bellew and he's come out on top. So I didn't pick him to beat David Hay the first time around, and he managed to do it. So I definitely wouldn't pick him to beat either one though. Del Boy's Boxing News says I felt Chamberlain would freeze on fight night. He doesn't seem the most confident type. Yeah, he never seemed the most confident type to me. But in the lead up to, you know, the fight in fight week, he seemed more confident. But I guess that was just the people around him gassing him up. As soon as he got punched in the mouth, he realized that those people that were gassing him up before the fight can't help him, because he was down in the first round. That's when the reality of the fight sunk in, and he just wasn't strong enough to keep Okolie off of him. The size difference was big. YouTube Media Story says, yes, Hatman, love your Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series on Patreon. It's proper interesting. Looking forward to hearing the next episode. And big up and thank you for signing up with me on Patreon, man. Glad you're enjoying the content. Eubank Jr.'s entrance is good. Eubank Jr. comes to the ring with Still Dre. That's the track he uses, right? Anthony Wade says, hey, aka Mr. Glass. TT Offet says, did the fans really ask for this fight, Hatman? I mean, the fans in South London asked for it. The Chamberlain fans and the Okolie fans in Hackney asked for it. So did the nationwide fans really ask for it? No. It was a local South London versus East London derby. That's what it was. But in terms of nationwide, definitely not. Ryan Khan says, I can't believe they hugged that much though. They should be throwing much more shots than that and better at finding their distance. Yeah, but as I say, it was the emotion, the nerves, that is what caused the fight to be so scrappy. Because you had Okolie who was just anxious to end the fight as soon as possible, flying in and not taking his time, and Chamberlain who just was throwing nothing. You know, it was difficult for him to throw because Okolie was all over him like an octopus, but still he didn't really show any fire in there at all. Isaac Chamberlain, he just was going through the motions trying to get through the fight. Big Mo says, Hatman, did you watch the top ranked boxing matches on Saturday? I did not. Thomas Box says Okolie would have done better on the back foot. Yeah, I think he would have done better just maintaining his distance more. He probably would have caught Chamberlain more. I mean, he had the power there, as you saw, to hurt him. Especially the second knockdown was a clean shot and he dropped him. Rockstar 1996 says David Hay was joking on IFL saying he's going down to cruiser. How do you think he fares against the cruisers, the current cruisers moving up? Not very well. David Hay, very few fights left in him. Very few training camps left in him. His body can't take it. Thomas Buck says, Hatman, you from London? Yup. JD says, when I saw Chamberlain doing his ring walk, it was like he was going for his execution. His body language was telling. I actually missed the ring walk, to be fair. I was on the way home and I missed the ring walk. Islam Reward says, can you see Andre Ward returning against who? Can I see him returning? I could see it, but I saw an interview with Ward recently on Fight Hype where he said he's not really planning to return right now, but the more people talk about him, the more he's going to get the itch to return. You know what he might do is he might do something like Floyd Mayweather did, because Floyd Mayweather would retire and then he would let everybody fight each other until there's like a consensus guy who people think is the best, and they start saying, well, how would he done against Mayweather, and then Mayweather will come back and fight him, that one guy, rather than scrapping it out with everybody, because he understood that that was more dangerous, scrapping it out with everybody. So Ward might do that. He might let all the light heavyweights scrap it out with each other, and then once there's a top guy, he may come back, if he's offered enough money, take on him, you know. Merrick says, I've always liked Klitschko's entrance song, Can't Stop, Simply the Best, of course, and I like Furies versus Klitschko, also Bradis, because he's a local homie. can't remember Klitschko's, you know. Which Klitschko? Vitaly or Vladimir? What do I think about Ulysses at 140? I don't think I've seen Ulysses fight, you know, I have to be honest. If I have, then it's escaped my mind. I like what I've seen from Josh Taylor so far. You know, I like what I've seen from him so far. He's coming along very, very nicely. Del Boys Boxing News says Ward's 100% coming back. Yeah, he may well come back. Rayhan Mia says, can Eubank stop Groves early? I mean, it's possible, but I'd be surprised, to be honest. I think Eubank Jr. will be doing very, very well if he manages to stop Groves early, because Groves is going to be sharp on the attack early. He's going to be very quick with the right hand, and it's a powerful punch. And I'm pretty sure Eubank Jr. will have to respect it. Lewis versus Bruno, Natural Mystic. Is that what Bruno came out to? Lewis came out for the Bruno fight to Crazy Bald Head by Bob Marley. That was his tune that he came out for most of his big fights. Was Bob Marley, Crazy Bald Head. Yeah. I can't remember what Bruno came out to. Trying to keep up with most of these comments. There's a lot of comments. Thomas Breder says, better commentary team, Sky or Box Nation? Sky or BT Box Nation? I used to say Sky, but these days John Rowland is actually cracking me up. John Rowland's been cracking me up, and Barry Jones is actually not bad. Who wins? 2 of the Mayweathers versus Anthony Joshua, says the Dominator. Come on now. Joshua's gonna mash up those 2 little guys, man. That's Joshua all day. He just swing them around like little ragdolls. Grant Gurney says, Hatman, if you were a boxer, what promoter would you sign with? That's an interesting question. I guess it depends on what kind of fighter I was, what position I was in. You know, if I was someone coming out of the amateurs with a gold medal or something like that, I might even take a gamble and sign with Haymaker Ringstar. I might do that because I'd be thinking about profile, getting myself out there to the most viewership, you know, and all that kind of business. And as I was saying the other day with O'Hara Davis, it might be better, you might be better off being a big fish in a small pond, which is what you would be if you were coming out of the amateurs with credentials and you're signing with Haymaker Ringstar. You'd be a big fish in a small pond. Now you have to take care in terms of what kind of deal you sign. That's the thing. If I was to sign with Haymaker Ringstar coming out at the Olympics with a gold, I'd maybe sign a 1-year deal, 1.5-year deal, or maybe sign a deal for a certain number of fights and have the clause that they have to get me this number of fights within a certain time frame, and if they don't, then I can leave. Alright, let me see some of these comments here. Okolie versus Bellew as they are now, you'd have to favor Bellew. You'd definitely have to favor Bellew over Okolie right now. 100%. 100%. Bellew is just way too seasoned and experienced and what have you. You'd have to favor Bellew big against Okolie at the moment. David Smith says, yo Hatman, you ever think about going to boxing events and doing interviews? We need someone to ask them real questions. You know, I've got a lot of respect for people who do that, all these different YouTube channels who go to these events and ask all the questions, because it's very, very time consuming. It's something you've got to be, either you've got to have loads of time on your hands to be able to go do it, like loads of free time, or it's something you have to be committed to completely as a career. And it's a saturated market at the moment. So I have thought about it, but I don't know. I'm not gonna try. I am going to be doing a lot of interviews this year, but for now, most of them are gonna be Skype interviews, recorded interviews, phone calls, etc., rather than in-person interviews, because it's just a lot easier to get things done this way rather than having to actually go meet people physically. And it is, as I say, a saturated market. Marek says Eubank Junior versus Groves is the fight to watch. I take Eubank late or points. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it, man. 100% looking forward to it. Kenak TV says add Sam with Adrian Broner. Thomas Breder says, do you think AJ Parker should be for the ring and lineal belts? Well, there is no lineal belt, but it's in terms of the ring belt. I respect what Ring Magazine have said. They've said that basically they want the number 1 and number 2 in their rankings to fight each other for the lineal belt. The number 1 at the moment is Joshua, the number 2 is Wilder, so that's why they're not sanctioning their Ring Magazine belt for Joshua Parker, because Parker's number 3. The lineal champion is still Tyson Fury. He's still the lineal champ, following on from Klitschko. So nobody can take the lineal championship. It's a fictitious championship. It's not something that can be stripped from anyone. It's just something you have because you beat, you know, the man who beat the man. David Smith says, thanks for answering. I was just asking because of that O'Hara Davis recording you put out with you asking him questions. C Max says, yo Hatman, who would win in this light heavyweight fight? Ward versus Calzaghe. It'll be a very, very good fight, a very tough fight. I rate Joe Calzaghe very high. You know, Calzaghe's got a lot of haters. He's got a lot of people who don't believe in him for various different reasons. And hey, everybody's got a right to an opinion. But I'm of the opinion that Calzaghe, in international terms, I know he's rated highly in Britain, but internationally, people don't really seem to respect Calzaghe that much. And I think he was very, very good. Very, very good. Him versus Ward, I would lean towards Ward slightly, but you know, Calzaghe was a very good fighter. He found a way to win. Calzaghe didn't always win pretty. Sometimes it was just work rate and whatever. It wasn't always the type of performance he put in against Jeff Lacey or Kessler. Sometimes he had to win ugly, but he would find a way somehow. And I guess you can say the same about Ward. Ward's the same. Ward has won a lot of fights ugly. Joshua Buatsi, let me talk about him. Andres Ballet says, Hatman, what level of fighter should Buatsi fight next? The likes of Spider Richards, who went 12 rounds with Bullioni, or Joe Sheriff, who went 10 rounds with Jake Bull? Yeah, you could put him in with a guy like that right now. You could. It might not be the best for him in terms of showcasing him and making him look spectacular, because that's what Eddie Hearn's trying to do. But Buatsi looked good. He looked sharp. I've heard Spencer Fearon comparing him to Holyfield. I can see the comparison stylistically. I think Holyfield, because Holyfield started off at light heavyweight too, I think Holyfield's naturally a bit bigger than Buatsi, and for me Holyfield was sharper and had faster hands than Buatsi. Buatsi's got decent hand speed, but it's nothing special. But in terms of his mentality, I can understand the comparison. The mentality and his basic kind of general style, I can see the Holyfield comparisons there. I can see it. Yeah, he has a very calm mindset, just like Holyfield. Holyfield, a very calm guy, you know, very level-headed. Calm in his headpiece, big up. T Toffet says, Hatman, did you think the referee cut off Chamberlain's inside game? I do think the referee was harsh on Chamberlain and not harsh enough on Okolie. That's just being real, you know. And I like Lawrence Okolie, but you know, I think the referee should have done more and should have been harder on Okolie with all the holding. And I think it would have helped Okolie, not just you know, the fight. I think it would have helped Okolie if the referee was harder on him. It would have forced him to discipline himself and take his time rather than rushing in. And funny enough, if you watch the first round, Big Bill Watts, the referee, was harsh on Chamberlain. He was very, very harsh on Chamberlain. And I think it would have helped Okolie if the referee was harder on him. It would have forced him to discipline himself and take his time rather than rushing in. And funny enough, if you watch the first round, it was shaping up to be a decent fight. Like, they were keeping themselves at a decent distance, but as soon as Okolie dropped Chamberlain, Okolie just went into just KO mode, and he was just so anxious to get the fight over. He got overexcited. He says he got emotionally involved, and that's what it was. Brandon says, so what happens when lineal champs retire? When lineal champs retire, a new lineage is started. Like Rocky Marciano retired undefeated, so a new lineage began after Rocky Marciano. And when Lennox Lewis retired at the top, he was lineal champion, a new lineage started after him with the Klitschko's. So that's what happens, because you can't trace the heavyweight title in terms of its lineage all the way back to John L. Sullivan, because there are breaks in the lineage, several breaks. If Belly was in the World Boxing Super Series, do you think he'd have a good chance of winning? No. In answer to your question, Ryan H, I don't think so. But yeah, as I keep saying, Belly was proved us all wrong so many times. You know, you underestimate him at your peril. Assman Click says, do you think anyone beats Prime Roy Jones? Yes, I do, but I don't know who, if that makes sense. Because if you fought every top fighter, theoretically, throughout history, someone's bound to beat you. You're not going to go undefeated in 12-round fights if you fought like every top fighter in history. Let's say every top 10 super middleweight in history, Roy Jones fought them all. Somebody's going to beat him. Somebody's going to land something or have some style that can be... Someone's going to beat him. I don't know who it would be, but somebody would beat him. You know, but I do rate Roy Jones Jr. as the best super middleweight I've ever seen. And I rate him as the most talented, the most naturally gifted fighter I've ever seen. I've never seen nothing like it. In fact, I want to shout out to Ade. He's got a channel now. He used to do the channel Box Talk with his friend Ryan. Now I think it's Boxing with Ade. Is that what his channel's called now? He did a video about Roy Jones Jr. the other day. That was one of the best videos I've seen about Roy Jones Jr. So shout out to Ade for his Roy Jones Jr. video. That was a wicked video. The way he summed up Roy Jones's career and the impact that Roy Jones had on the sport at the time, perfect. He described it perfectly. Because for those who came to boxing after the Roy Jones era, it's really difficult to describe what a phenom Roy Jones Jr. actually was during his prime. He was a phenom. Like he did stuff in a boxing ring that it would just blew your mind. You didn't see people do things like this. And he was able to blow fighters away who other top fighters really struggled with. A good example, Tony Thornton, right? Tony Thornton was a tough contender slash fringe contender who managed to go the distance with a bunch of people like James Toney and what have you, Chris Eubank. But Roy Jones just blew him out the water, just totally blew him away. He played with people who other guys had a tough time with. Byron Mitchell was a good scrap for Joe Calzaghe, says Boxing Killers TV. Yeah, I remember that fight. Calzaghe got dropped, but he got the guy out of there. Alright, let me check out here. Trying to keep up with these comments. There's so many coming in. Nizzy Kid says, I think Gassiev would stop Belly at cruiserweight. Yeah, me too. Devon Sinclair says, do you think Gassiev can be successful at heavyweight? You know, I think it's more difficult than it's ever been for cruiserweights to be successful at heavyweight now, because the gap between the size of heavyweights, of the elite heavyweights and cruiserweights, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's the issue. The size is just getting ridiculous now. So I wouldn't like Gassiev's chances with the very, very top guys. You know, the Wilders and Joshua's and those. I wouldn't like his chances, to be honest with you. I'm not going to totally dismiss it, because he's a very talented fighter, clearly. I was really impressed by Gassiev against Dorticos because I never realized that Gassiev had a back foot game. And the reason why I'm so surprised he had a back foot game is because Gassiev is not an experienced fighter. He had very few amateur fights. This is the unusual thing about him as an Eastern European Russian fighter. Most of them have got hundreds of amateur fights. This guy had like less than 20, I think. And he hasn't had that many pro fights. And yet this guy pulls out a back foot game out of nowhere. So like, I was very impressed with Gassiev. So I'm not going to underestimate him at heavyweight at all. But I wouldn't give him a great chance against the top guys at heavyweight right now. Just because of the size. He's got skills. But the size of these guys, the strength, the punching power, you know, it can overwhelm people. D-Dubs, big up all day. Jolly Rogers says, Hatman, did you know Okolie has calves the size of a chopstick? He may have, but I don't know how that's going to be relevant. You know, David Hay was talking about Okolie sparring Joe Joyce, and David Hay was actually saying Okolie's got a good chin. That's what he kept saying. He said he came down on his own to the Haymaker gym to spar Joe Joyce without any trainers, without anything, and he hung in there with Joyce. He took good shots, he gave good shots back, and his chin held up. So Hay was actually quite impressed with Okolie, and he picked Okolie to win as well, by the way. He said he thinks Okolie's going to be too strong for Chamberlain, and he was right. Ryan H says David Price to KO Povetkin, not joking. I hope so. I hope David Price can KO Povetkin. I'd be over the moon, to be honest with you. I'd be over the moon. I would be over the moon. Devon Sinclair says, what about Gassiev versus Povetkin, similar styles and size? That'd be a very good fight. That's a good shout. That'd be a very, very good fight. The smaller heavyweights, yeah, I could see Gassiev having success against, especially now Povetkin is aging. And he didn't look particularly good in his last few fights. But I would still, I don't know, we need to see what Povetkin looks like in his next couple to see where he's at. You know, now that he's off the Meldonium and all that, we need to see where he's at. But the Povetkin who fought Takam and all them guys, I'd pick him over Gassiev. But the Povetkin now, we'll see. Adam Scott says Gassiev had veteran composure. He really did. He really did. He had veteran composure, man. For a guy with such little experience, I was very impressed with Gassiev. Liam Goff says, does any of the current middleweights beat a prime McClellan? You know, McClellan was a tremendous puncher. A tall guy with long arms, a good jab, an iron jaw. The only thing that McClellan really lacked, and he had good hand speed too, not amazing but decent hand speed, the only thing McClellan really lacked was a defense. McClellan's defense was always horrible, and it was a tragedy what happened to him obviously in the Nigel Benn fight. But that's one of the reasons that happened to him in the Benn fight, because the guy never had no defense. You go look at the Julian Jackson fight, same thing. The guy's getting clipped with all kinds of shots. He just had no defense. So I think McClellan versus Golovkin would be one of the greatest fights you could ever imagine seeing. I think that's how it would turn out to be, because you got two guys who both are tremendous punchers, both guys who have got iron jaws. I mean, that's an incredible fight right there. And Golovkin I actually rate higher than Nigel Benn. I think he's better than Benn, but Benn had a certain style that got to McClellan, and Benn was ducking underneath punches, ducking and rolling underneath shots while he was coming forward and relentlessly attacking. Golovkin is a bit more stationary than that when he comes forward. He doesn't move his head that much. He's not as unpredictable with his movement as Nigel Benn was against McClellan. So I do think McClellan would find it easier to tag Golovkin than he found tagging Nigel Benn a lot of the time. Benn in the first round in that McClellan fight made the mistake of trying to stand off, you know, and that's when McClellan was able to catch him. But as soon as Benn started going forward and ducking underneath the punches, he realized that it was actually safer doing that. It was safer to be in the eye of the storm rather than on the edge of the storm. Mitsutoshi says, did you see Crawford's son Benavidez Jr.? Benavidez was looking like a chump. Crawford's son Benavidez. I didn't see it. I'll have to catch that. Alright, let me catch up with some of these. DM Lee says McClellan Mini Mike Tyson. Yeah, that's what Don King was hyping him up to be. Del Boys Boxing News says Hawk beat Povetkin IMO. Yeah, but that was Povetkin before he suddenly found this tremendous knockout power, you know. The one who fought Marco Huck was not the same Povetkin who fought Carlos Takam and all them guys there. Danny Gallagher says, are you of the opinion that Golovkin is on the slide? I think Golovkin has peaked. Yeah, and I've been saying this for a while. I've been saying for a while that Golovkin will not be at the top for very, very long because of his age and because of the fact that he does take punishment. Think of the fights that he's been having. In the Kell Brook fight, he took punishment. You know, I know it's only a welterweight, but he still took punishment. In the Danny Jacobs fight, he took loads of clean headshots of an extremely big middleweight. Against Canelo, he took plenty of clean head punches. And this guy's what, 35, 36? That puts years on you. And he's not just taking the shots in the ring, it's also the sparring in the training camps. So, and guys, historically, guys who are pressure fighters and come forward, they don't tend to have especially long careers. Look at Mike Tyson, Joe Frazier, you know, all these pressure guys don't tend to have long careers. So I think Golovkin has already peaked. I don't necessarily mean he's over the hill, but he might be at his peak around now, and it's the only way is down from now. I could be wrong, but that's the way I see it. I think we ain't gonna see Golovkin get any better from here. Right, sorry if I can't get to everyone's comments. There is so many. So please forgive me, people. Marek says, I was a bit shocked that Nigel Benn said he smoked a pack a day for a good part of his career. Yeah, Nigel Benn's one of them guys. You know, certain guys, those emotional kind of fighters, you find that they do all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't imagine they'd be doing, like smoking cigarettes, like drinking, and all that kind of business. Mike Tyson used to drink a lot in his prime, you know. Tyson used to drink and take cocaine in his prime. Incredible. Mike Tyson said he went to the ring on several occasions high on cocaine. One of the occasions he said was when he fought, it wasn't in his prime, but it was when he fought Lou Savarese in Scotland. He said he was high on coke when he fought Savarese. Hands of Stone, big up. Liam Goff says, do you still think Lucas Brown was spiked in Grozny? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm still of that opinion. Bilal T says, Hatman, I'm favouring Canelo for the rematch. He's felt GGG's power and I don't know what GGG could do differently. You know, the issue for Canelo is still his stamina. I feel like skill-wise, he's actually better than Triple G. I think he demonstrated that in the first fight. He's got more skill than him. Even when Canelo came forward, he was actually getting the better of it. When he decided to come forward and made an effort to come forward and engage with Golovkin, I thought he was getting the better of it in most exchanges. Faster hands, cleaner punches, better punch placement, but he just couldn't sustain it. And that's why he was on the run, because he don't have the engine to have a decent punch output. So Canelo, I think, is a more skilled fighter than Golovkin, but can he improve his stamina for the rematch? Because this has been an ongoing problem throughout Canelo's career, is his lack of stamina. He fights in spurts throughout a round and then takes long stretches of rounds off. I feel like he might have to fight Golovkin in the pocket in this fight. You know, if he moves as much as he did last time around, and here's one thing as well. I think there was a rumor going around that Canelo would hurt his right hand going into the Golovkin fight, and I think there might be some validity to that, because Canelo don't normally wear winning gloves. Winning gloves are very padded and very protective, and not many top professionals wear winning gloves for actual pro fights. They tend to wear them in training because they are so protective for your hands. But whereby Canelo was wearing them in the fight, and he normally wears Everlast MX, you have to ask the question, was his hand really injured, and how much effect did that have on his performance? Fahad says, what's the future for Chamberlain? Is he strong enough to compete at cruiserweight? Can he boil down to light heavy? I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. He is one of those guys, it seems, that is stuck between light heavy and cruiser. Too big for light heavy, too small for cruiser. I think the biggest issue with Isaac Chamberlain is finding his confidence. That's going to be the biggest issue. He kind of reminds me of a fighter who, from way back in the days, called Paul Vaden. Yeah, go Google a guy called Paul Vaden. I remember him fighting Terry Norris. Yeah, Paul Vaden. And Vaden was a guy who did reach championship level, but his confidence never really allowed him to make the most out of what he had. And I remember when he fought Norris, he just shrunk. Mentally, he wasn't ready for it. He wasn't a naturally confident guy. And that's how Isaac Chamberlain seems to be. Chamberlain seems to be kind of a shy character. And the boxing ring is no place for shy characters. You can be a nice guy and come across as cordial and respectful, but you can't feel like a shy guy in that ring. You gotta be a beast. You gotta be mean. 54 Trail Swan says, do you think Mick Hennessy is finished? Mick Hennessy was never really started to be finished. You know what I mean? Like, Hennessy, I mean, he don't have no TV deal. I don't know, maybe he is. What I want to know is which promoter is in legal issues with Tyson Fury. That's what I want to know, because Eddie Hearn keeps on talking about it. He says there's some promoter that's suing Fury, or he's got him in court, litigation or something like that. This is what Eddie Hearn keeps saying. I want to know who it is. Somebody the other day suggested it might be what's the guy called now? Bert Bunter, Klitschko's promoter. Somebody's saying it might be him because Fury didn't follow through with his rematch. Some people are suggesting it could be Hennessy. Some people are suggesting it could be Fish Eyes. I don't know, but I want to know. Elio Coletta, yes, Hatman, first podcast, big ups. Well, technically it's not the first, but I'm calling it the first official podcast. Yeah, the other ones I was just calling them live streams, but I'm gonna try and make this a regular thing on a Sunday to be doing podcasts. So yeah. Hatman, which weight divisions do you think the World Boxing Super Series will include next time? Yeah, it's one of the lower weight divisions Richard Schaefer was talking about. I think it was like bantamweight or something. Was it bantamweight? I think it was bantamweight, super bantam. Maybe it was one of the smaller weight divisions they were talking about. At the end of the day, World Boxing Super Series know that it's going to be very difficult to get stars into the tournament, because a lot of stars are not really interested in being forced to fight certain people, and they want to cherry pick who they're going to fight and when to maximize how much money they're going to make and increase their chances of winning. They say boxing is all about timing, so they know it's going to be difficult to get the top guys who are cash cows in. They managed to do it in the super middleweight division with Groves and Eubank, but at cruiserweight, all those guys, none of those guys are really cash cows. The cruiserweight division, unfortunately, doesn't get the recognition and the respect that it deserves, because it's a fantastic division, and it's been a fantastic division for many years now. The talent level at cruiserweight is unbelievable. So But still, unfortunately, there's nobody in the cruiserweight division that's really on the level of an international star. You know, Usyk has got a decent following, I guess, and Gassiev is getting a few more followers now because of the fact that he's associated with Abel Sanchez and Triple G. But still, they're not big stars. But they're going to be bigger stars, obviously, following this tournament. Again, apologies for not being able to read out all the comments because there's so many. As soon as I get my answers out, there's 10 more comments being typed, so you'll have to bear with me. Headley War says Chamberlain froze yesterday. Yeah. Scouser Doyle says, who would you pick between Mick Hennessy and Terry O'Connor in a kebab house straightener? Definitely Terry O'Connor. I don't think Mick Hennessy has ever fought, has he? Hands of Stone says, Hatman, why do you think some people cannot improve their stamina no matter how hard they train? His stamina ceiling's been linked to genetics, or is it just that guys who claim that is a theory? No, I think it is genetics. Look at the size of Canelo. Like, look at he's built like a mini Mike Tyson. The size, I mean, and you see the difference between Canelo and Tyson is that Tyson could get in the ring at his walking around weight. He didn't have to cut weight. Canelo fighting at 160, he's still cutting loads of weight to get down to 160. And look at the size of him. Look at his muscle mass, his neck. Like, somebody with that kind of muscle mass needs a tremendous amount of fuel in order to actually get your punch output out there. But he's been starving himself his whole career because he's been so big for every weight division he's fought in. So I just think Canelo's stamina is limited by the sheer size of the guy. He's so muscular in that, and he fights explosively as well. This is the thing, he's not one of those guys like James Kirtland, for example, who trudges forward and chips away at you throwing kind of medium power punches. Canelo don't fight like that. When Canelo throws, he throws with maximum power. So he's kind of like a David Haye. Yeah, a David Haye, he'll move around the ring, and when he throws, he's putting everything into his punches, and that takes a lot out of you. Yeah, it takes a lot of energy out of you. That's why Haye would then move around after he's thrown his shots, not just for defensive reasons, but also to regain his energy. You know, so that's the same situation with Canelo. He's a very muscular guy who's very big, even for a middleweight, and then he fights in a way which is not very energy efficient because he puts everything into the punches that he throws, you know, explosive combinations which sap a lot of energy out of him, and then he has to move around and regroup and gain some energy back, then he goes again. So with that style and his body type and genetics, I can't see him ever having good stamina unless maybe he moved up another weight division, you know, to super middleweight. It might improve, I don't know. It also comes down to the way he trains, you know, and the way he fights. If he was a guy who would throw more little shots like a Margarito rather than loading up, then he could probably have a higher work rate, but then he'd be a different kind of fighter because his punches wouldn't be as powerful, they wouldn't have as much impact, etc. So Nick Mandelberg says, love your vids, Hatman, great to catch you on the live stream, and great to have you on board, bro. Thanks for locking in. Mr. Megabox Song says, just tuning in. Amir Mansour says he was warned against fighting in Russia because of tainted blood urine samples. He now says he regrets it because that is what recently happened. Wasn't aware of that. I am going to try and make these podcasts weekly, Bilal T. Oh, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I didn't even realize. I don't watch American football these days, but I didn't even realize it was Super Bowl Sunday. Thomas Box says, Mike Tyson, was he taking PEDs? Roid Rage Monster? It wouldn't surprise me if he was. Wouldn't surprise me. Because Tyson quite openly said that he was finding ways to get around the drug testing, to circumvent drug testing. He was openly saying this. As far as I'm aware, he's only admitted to circumventing drug testing because of recreational drugs like marijuana and cocaine and whatnot. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tyson was taking all, other stuff, PEDs. I wouldn't be surprised, because back then in Nevada, where a lot of Tyson's fights were, they didn't have drug testing for things like steroids, believe it or not. Yeah, there was no compulsory steroid testing in Nevada in the 80s and 90s. So God knows how many people were taking steroids back then, especially in the 90s. Tommy Morrison, RIP, said that he fought virtually his entire career on steroids. Morrison admitted to that. So, and he never got caught. So how many other guys fought their whole career on steroids without getting caught? Faz says, Hatman, have you heard they are bringing back the Contender Boxing TV show? I think I did hear, actually. Yeah, I did hear. So Sylvester Stallone can act like he was a real boxer again, giving professional boxers training advice when he's never actually fought a fight in his life. I did used to find that funny. Big Daddy Max says, Deontay Wilder, dangerous heavyweight or padded record? Both. Del Boys Boxing News says, how do you see Jarrett Hurd versus Erislandy Lara? I think it will be a much harder fight for Lara than people are making out. I haven't seen Lara's past few fights, I haven't seen his past few fights, I'll be honest. Lara is not somebody I go and rush to watch, because it's not usually very entertaining. So I have to go and watch his past few performances before I give a prediction on that. How's he been looking, Del Boy? Like lately, Erislandy Lara. How's he been looking lately? David Brent says, hope to see Bellew in the winner of the World Boxing Super Series. That's a pay-per-view fight in the UK. Yeah, and Bellew was targeting Usyk. He thinks Usyk's going to win the World Boxing Super Series, but whoever it is, Bellew was targeting them. And yeah. Mr. Burger Boy asks a very interesting question. What do you think of the final being in Jeddah? I think it's bizarre. Mr. Burger Boy, are you from Birmingham? Is that why you're Mr. Burger Boy? Or are you just somebody that likes burgers? Yeah, the final being in Jeddah is bizarre. I've never known of a boxing match to be in Saudi Arabia before. And I guess this must be linked to the new prince who's taken over in Saudi Arabia, because he's trying, ostensibly, on the surface it seems he's trying to kind of westernize Saudi Arabia a little bit, and maybe this is part of it, introducing this or having this big boxing event there. It's bizarre, but the Saudis are obviously paying good money to have it there, and the Saudi royal, see, this is the thing, when you have a country that is run by a royal family, run by a monarchy, when they want an event, they don't have to ask permission from anybody. You could say it's similar in so-called democracies, but you still have to go through certain bureaucratic formalities. You still have to go through red tape, even if you're a government in a democracy. Even though you're going to get what you want in the end, it's a longer process. Whereas in a monarchy, you just, if you want something, you click your fingers, it's done, we're going to have it, and that's it. Nobody can say anything to you. And that's, I guess, what's going on in Saudi Arabia with this World Boxing Super Series. They decided they wanted it. Whatever money was involved, and they've got it. But it is bizarre to have it there. It's bizarre. All you're going to see in the crowd is just men. There's not going to be a single woman. There's not going to be round card girls. It's going to be a bizarre place to have a boxing event. But, Yes, big up Elio Coletta, big up. Liam Goff says, whenever I tell my mates who are casuals the cruiserweight division is amazing, they think WWE cruiserweight. Rahman says, nice podcast, what are your thoughts on Amir Khan's comeback? Can he become champion again? Too soon to say. Let's see what he looks like in his first comeback fight. then we'll know, because he's been out the ring a long time. He's got demons. He's been putting on weight. So we need to see, man. See where he's at, then we can assess him. Alright, let's get to some of these more recent comments. Moji Rashid says Holyfield was on PEDs, no doubt. Evan Fields, yeah, you know. Holyfield was suspect to say the least. Steven Stewart says, Hatman, you're sounding like one of your Patreon podcasts. Yeah, I sound a lot less formal. When I'm doing live, I just talk how I normally talk in real life for the most part. So I'm a lot more relaxed and less formal in these podcasts. Big up Oasis One. Says, great channel, Hatman, and thank you for locking in. John Hayes, big up. Says, shout out from Ireland. Big up John Hayes. Del Boys Boxing News says Laura looked a tad slower against. He is up. Okay. Yeah. MB says Saudis will be fronting the money. I guess that's why it's probably there. You know, the Saudis are putting up a hell of a lot of money to have the event there for whatever reason. Because I'm sure they could have had other events, but again, there's been a change of the leadership in Saudi Arabia. There's a particular prince who's taken over the running of the country, and he's doing things differently, and he wants this big event, so it's done. He clicks his fingers, and whatever event he wants, whatever money needs to be spent on it, it's done. Yes, big up Warren, big up. Dylan White would KO Jarrell Miller easy 5 rounds. Miller ain't fought nobody with a pulse, only old men. I'd be amazed if Dylan White could knock out Jarrell Miller in 5, to be honest. Amazed. Excuse me. Again, apologies for not getting to everybody's comments. There are just too many to read. So big up Rob Lowe from Manchester. Yes, big up Ireland. Oasis One. Paul Johnson says Hatman does Selby school Warrington. I think so. I think Selby will outbox Warrington, but it's gonna be at Ellen Road, right? So every punch that Warrington throws is gonna get cheered. Never mind what he actually connects with. Will that influence the judges? I'm definitely picking Lee Selby to win the fight. I think he's the better fighter, and I think that because it's a domestic grudge match, it'll actually elevate Lee Selby's performance to better than we've seen from him of late. So I'm expecting Lee Selby to win the fight, definitely, but I think he needs to try and go for a knockout if he can. He needs to try and stop the guy or put a serious beating on him, not just win, but put a beating on him. Try and get some of these here. Gassiev is one tough. Yeah, Gassiev's tough. Very talented. I'm very impressed with Gassiev. I know I keep saying it, but very, very impressed with Gassiev. The fact that he's got a back foot game as well. Sam Cook says, do you think boxing can be the national sport of England, or is football too big? Football is too big. It's too big, and you don't have to be brave to play football. Everyone can do it. Everyone can participate. Whereas in boxing, you have to have a certain level of bravery and toughness, which you don't have to have in football. So the reason why football is so big is because anybody can play football. Asim Khan says, what's behind the name Hatman? I've always been someone that has a lot of hats. So it's no deeper than that. Leo O'Brien says, Hatman, do you think Deontay Wilder is overlooking Ortiz? I don't think so. No, I don't think he is. I don't think he is. If he loses to Ortiz, it will just be because Ortiz is better, in my view. I don't think it will be anything to do with underestimating. I think Wilder knows how dangerous Ortiz is. I think he knows. Alright. Try and get to a couple more comments. Again, apologies for not reading out everybody's comments. I'm kind of overwhelmed here. There's so many. Do I have a Russian hat? I don't. I'd like one though. Let me just read out the newer comments now, rather than trying to go back to the old ones. It's too many. Hatman, what's your real first name? Well, I'm not going to divulge that. I'm not going to divulge that. I sound like a Darren. Okay. I'll talk about Dylan White before you go. What do you want to know about Dylan White before I go? He's fighting Lucas Brown. I think he's going to beat Lucas Brown, and he's going to beat him on points. That's what I think. I'm not counting Lucas Brown out at all. He's got punching power. He's mentally tough. He's aggressive. He will go for it. But I think Dylan White will take it on points. That's what I think. David Smith says, you think long-term ex-smoker can make it as a pro boxer at elite world level, and what is the age limit when getting into the sport when we talk about heavyweights? It just depends on the talent. It depends on the talent. It depends on the talent and the dedication. Tony Thompson started boxing very late. I think Tony Thompson was like, what, 28, 29 when he first laced up a pair of gloves. So he was very, very old by the time he started boxing. And he reached a decent level. He was never world champion, but he fought for the world title a couple times. Matt Skelton started boxing when he was in his early 30s. He did come from a combat sports background, to be fair, but in terms of professional boxing, he'd never done any kind of boxing, no amateur boxing, nothing, until he was in his 30s when he turned pro. And he at least reached world title level. He went the distance with Chagayev for the world title. So just depends on your talent level, your mental strength, and how dedicated you are. Obviously, the more talented you are, the easier it's going to be for you starting the sport late, whether you're a smoker or not. I mean, ideally you shouldn't be smoking, but I remember there was he Danish? I think it was Danish. A guy called Johnny Breedle, who was he super bantamweight or bantamweight or featherweight? He was one of those lighter weights. I think he was from Denmark, and he used to smoke, Johnny Breedle, and he fought at a decent level. LG, what's good from Brooklyn, NY. BK, home of the brave. Thoughts on James Toney? Man, I was a big James Toney fan back in the days. I was a big James Toney fan. Manny Rivera says, MILFs or GILFs? What is GILFs girlfriends and MILFs his mothers? Just clarify that. Shaka G says, why do you not rate Keith Thurman as much as Errol Spence? I rate them both. I just think styles make fights, and Thurman is suspect to the body, and Errol Spence is a great body puncher. Thurman has been picking up injuries, so yeah, I mean, it's not like I heavily favor Errol Spence. I marginally favor Errol Spence over Keith Thurman at this point, marginally. But it might change over the next year or so, because they ain't gonna fight till 2019. So by then I might have changed my views on both fighters because of their performances and their fights they're gonna have this year. So at the moment, if they were to fight right now, I would marginally favor Errol Spence, because I just think, yeah, Thurman is vulnerable to the body. He seems to be picking up a lot of injuries. Errol Spence has momentum behind him, and he's just got the eye of the tiger at the moment. This is why I was so sure he was going to beat Kell Brook. Sometimes you see a guy who's just on a roll and he's just on it mentally. He's on it. He won't be denied. Spence just has that at the moment. He's so dedicated. He's not. You don't have distractions outside of the ring. All he cares about is boxing. He's just obsessed with boxing. Guys like that are very dangerous. Oh my gosh, grannies are gilfs are grannies. Nah. Let's not even go there. Let's not even go there. Ruben Caddick, yes. Walk firm on the slab. No need to pay when I'm taking a cab. Look in me eyes. I ain't here for the pork or the pies. Oh, bad boy tune. Why don't you rate Dylan as he is a great body puncher? I feel that you believe Dylan isn't as good as Jarrell when he is much better than him and will KO him. I didn't say that Dylan couldn't beat Miller. I just said I don't think he's going to stop him. I think Miller's tough. Very tough. I think Miller, and this is just a hunch, I can't prove it because he hasn't fought this level of fighter, but I think Miller is as tough as Chisora, as physically tough, but I think he's got more in him than Chisora because he's younger and he's hungrier. So I think he's at least as tough as Chisora in terms of his punch resistance or whatnot, and White couldn't stop Chisora. And Miller's a lot bigger than Chisora too. A lot bigger. I think physically stronger. David Brent says, Okolie Chamberlain was atrocious, but it still doesn't make me any more interested in two YouTubers pretending to fight. Yeah, I hear that. Spencer's Jamaican. Yeah, Spencer's Jamaican. I believe, what is he? Second generation? His parents came from Jamaica to the United States, I believe. Or was it his grandparents? Maybe his grandparents. Jambo Brown says Miller has a really good work rate. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Devon Sinclair says, do you think Bradis is underrated? Everyone is criticizing Usyk's performance, but maybe Bradis is that good. Yeah. Yeah, Bradis really impressed me in the Usyk fight. Really impressed me. But I guess people are saying, look, anyone who can replicate what Bradis did is going to give Usyk problems. And maybe they're looking at heavyweights in terms of stylistically. If they can replicate what Bradis did in their heavyweights, it's going to be a bit of a problem for Usyk. Alright peeps, I'm going to end this live stream right here, this podcast. I'm going to try and make this a weekly thing every Sunday. So thank you guys for locking in. And I'll catch you guys on the next live stream. So yeah, big up everyone for locking in. Thank you all. I'm out.